Good morning. Kum Lenin of Lat Gemara. We are up to Daf Mem Ches Amud Aleph, the top of the page. Says the Mishnah. We're going through the different levels by houses, different levels. We said regarding stones. Now we're saying Sholosh Asher the same. And what's fascinating about today's Gemara is that we learned the Gemara a few days ago. We learned a certain way in the Gemara, and there was no room for any other way of learning. And now the Gemara is going to turn everything upside down. In fact, the halach is going to be like this Gemara here, not like we learned a few days ago, as you'll see. And to just remind you, we had a machlekes a few days ago. If you planted a tree normally, but then while the tree was growing, you bow down to the tree, and what happens to the growth that comes from now on? According to Rizal, any new growth is Avodah Zarah. According to Chachamim, no, it's not Avodah Zarah. So it seems from the Gemara before, not the Gemara clearly says that their argument is only regarding the new growth, not regarding the tree itself. Because when you planted the tree, you planted normally. Now the Gemara is going to change. The Gemara is going to say, according to Rashi, as we'll see, that everyone agrees the new growth is also. The Shaila is about the old growth, the original tree. So let's see. Shalish, up to the Mishnah on top of the page. Shalish, Hashedesh, and the three different trees. Elon you planted the three levels of dinim of trees. You planted the tree for Avodah Zarah, it's also obviously you planted for Avodah Zarah. What about case number two? Gida, you pisloi, that you chopped off the branches, or pisloi, you sort of trimmed it. The shem avodas gechamim, for the sake of Avodah Zarah. So now new growth happened. The hechlif, and you took away then that new growth. Noitel masha hechlif. Sorry, hechlif, a new growth happened. Noitel masha hechlif. It's enough to take away that new growth, and the rest of the tree is tied because the tree was not Avodah Zarah, only the new growth. Yeah. So Hamid tacht, case number three. Hamid tachteha avodah, an ordinary tree, but you place an Avodah Zarah underneath the tree. Unatola, so the tree itself never became masa, but you shouldn't go there while the Avodah Zarah is there. We'll see there's too much like oil. Harei zumuteris. The tree now totally is mutter. Second, Rabbi Yana says, "Who shehevrich v'hirkiv b'noifer shel ilan." That this, what we say, that the new growth is considered Avodah Zarah. It's only talking about if you grafted, you took a branch, you put it in the ground, and a new tree came out, or you grafted it onto a tree and it's new growth. In other words, the logic is this is taka a new tree. This is like you're starting a new tree. Only then do we say that new tree will be Avodah Zarah. Only then is Avodah Zarah. So the Gemara, because nobody's saying if you didn't do Gidoy Pisla, you just new growth after you bow down to it, there's no Avodah Zarah. So yeah, yes. Yeah, exactly. Trimming alone is not gonna do anything. You need to start a new tree. So the Gemara, what are you talking about? Says Mefedish, all you have to do is prune the tree. It's already considered the new growth. It's Avodah Zarah. What do you tell me, Dafk, if you create like you graft a tree? The Rabbi Yana, I forget. Rabbi Yana is not talking about that at all. Rabbi Yana is talking about Le'inyan Bittul. He's not talking about starting out on Isser. What he's saying is whether you have mevatlet or not. He's talking about Bittul. That if a Yid is mevatlet, that if a Yid is mevatlet, the Hivrich, this is what he's saying here. Even though Hivrich v'hirkiv b'noifer shalil b'gufa shalil. You went to this extent. You create a new tree. Kinotl. If you take away the new growth, mash hechlif shapelim. That's enough. You would have thought because you mamish made a whole new tree over here, the mountain. I would have thought even the hivrich v'hirkiv b'gufa shalil, and since you grafted it into the tree itself, is ki'ilu shenot b'childam. The entire tree maybe becomes also now because you're not only just trimming a tree, you mamish. You rejuvenated the tree, you made a whole new part of the tree. So you would have thought that the entire tree becomes also in this case. The litza kula, the entire tree should be also. Kamashla says no. That even though you're markiv, if you take away the new growth, that's enough. The tree itself does not become asa. Comes along Shmuel and he says the following din. Shmuel says, if somebody bows down to an ordinary tree, that with the new growth is asa. Which is the way we learned a long time ago, a few days ago, Rabbi Yehuda's Shitta, that the new growth is asa. The Chacham says the new growth is not asa. Moshe Rabbi Loz asked a question from this Mishnah here. It says if you did a pu'ula for Avodah Zarah, behechli, we take that away. Noitel masha hechli. Sounds from here, it's not enough to bow. If you bow down to the tree, what did you do to the tree itself? Garnished. But sounds from our Mishnah, when do we say that the new growth becomes Avodah Zarah? Dafk if you did a pu'ula. How can Shmuel say hamashtachve? Gid a pisli in like gid a pisli? Only if you did a pu'ula with the tree itself. Amalach Shmuel, well, isn't that the machlekes we had before the Gemara between Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda and the Chachamim? So this mission over here follows the Chachamim that bowing down does not make the new growth of Avodah Zarah. So therefore, this mission says, but if you did a pu'ula, then it becomes Avodah Zarah. But according to Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, Taki, you don't need to. So the Gemara, Amalach Shmuel, Hamani Rabbanli, Ushmuel, but my din that I said, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. He holds Elon, a tree that was planted normally, but then you decide to worship it. Awesome. My din, basically, I'm passing Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. That's what you're learning right now. And this Mishnah is going according to Chachamim that the bowing down does not make anything Avodah Zarah. It's only if you did a pu'ula comes Avodah Zarah. Then you want to masculine Rav Ashi, and Rav Ashi will turn everything around. Memai. How do you know that Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda v'Rabbanan b'Tosefes plugi? How do you know that their argument is talking about the new growth? Is it Avodah Zarah or not? That's how we learned before. Now remember, we had two psukim in the Torah. One is Ashereim Tisrafun, and one is Ashereim Tigad. So you have to cut it down. So we said that according to Tigadeon means that not the entire tree is possible, but only part of the tree. So we asked if Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda learns from Tigadeon. That's how he learns his din. So why does it say Ashereim Tisrafun? So we want to have to give a derech that it's Eloi. It wouldn't have said Tigadeon. Our Taka would learn. Tisrafun means to burn the whole, that only the whole tree is also. Now that says Tigadeon. Like and the Chachamim hold that no, Asherei Tisafun is to tell you that the entire tree gets burned. So if you bow down the middle, nothing happens. What did I do? The Pasuk Adeon, so we say something else altogether. The order of events. As soon as you come at Yisrael, first thing is you got to chop down the Avodah Zarah, then go to war, and then afterwards you uproot it and you get rid of it. That's how we learned the Gemara before. So now the Gemara will change it around. Comes along and mahapich everything. How do you know the basic Tosefet pligi? Dilma Tosefet v'hakalos. Everyone agrees that one of the extras also will be kore pligi. And you know they're arguing whether the original tree is also us or not. That's the machlekes. That what Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Savri kore namios. He holds everything is also. The chsiv it says the ashareihem plural. As if to say there are two kinds of Asherah trees. Tisafun, whether you Chatchila planted it to be Asherah, or whether you planted it to be a normal tree and then you decide to bow down to it. Both of these cases, you have to do the Tisafun. Tisafun, you have to burn the entire tree down. Nothing remains. But Abana Sabri, Iked Elon Shadi. No, if you bow down to the tree after it grew already, part of it, the Iked tree remains good. Why? Because they dash it from the Pasik Vasharem Tigaden. They dash it from the Pasik. They want you have to chop down the tree. Only part of the tree gets ruined. No, if it wasn't planted for Avodah Zarah, only that part of the new growth is what you have to chop down. But the Iked still remains in the ground. There's no problem. I said Ashereim plural. It's talking about Ashereim the Alma. There's a lot of trees out there, especially in Israel when they came in there. Yeah. Because this way they dash. What do you think? They only part of the trees also. Why did they even allude to this before? This one said you're right. Because we had a whole problem. It says Ashereim Tigadein that the Gemara before was we tried to figure out sukkim and everything else. Why don't you just answer simply? Why it says what do you call it? Because according to him, all shaders have to be burnt, regardless where you. What answers? Because otherwise we asked over there. It says tikadei. What do you ask to Sirifim? Anyways, my answer is eifuk. You take it, turn it around. The answer we gave in the Gemara before to Rabbi Yossi answered to Rabbanan. Rabbi Yossi Rabbanan. In fact, Rabbi Yossi himself didn't bring the pasuk Tigadein. He only brought Tisrafun, and we asked why he didn't bring it. So we said, Eloi. If it wouldn't have Tigadein, I still have this. So that's a difficult answer. So therefore, just change it around. So let's say again that Rabbi Yossi, and therefore Rabbi Yossi learns from Ashrei Tisrafun Be'esh, Loshen Rabim, that both trees, whichever tree, whatever, even you bow down later on, you burn the whole tree down. If everybody holds that the Hisafa is us, the Machlek is only the Ikir, So who's our Mishnah here? The Mishnah says that if you did a pool with a tree, then the new growth is also. Who's that? Because he just by bowing down to his also, and he could ill nami also. So the Gemara, Iboy same Rabban, Iboy same Rabbi Yosef. You can learn both ways. Iboy is a actually, all the Rishonim ask over here, why don't we answer a very simple answer we had before the Gemara yesterday? Give a simple answer. Either you bow down and you don't do anything to the tree, which is what the previous Mishnah, or if you cut the tree, even though you don't bow down, because you did it, L'Shem Avodah is enough. And that's who this Mishnah is, and it's consistent with everybody else. There's already different answers. When does Yehuda say faket? Interesting. That by cutting it and trimming it, is less of a Avodah Zarah. When does that basically say the entire tree is also you bow down to the tree? That means you want the whole tree to be Avodah Zarah. So the whole tree becomes Avodah Zarah. But if you did a pool of the Shem Avodah Zarah by trimming it, that is showing only the new growth I want to be Avodah Zarah, not the rest of the tree. By cutting it down, you're limiting the Avodah Zarah. You would think the mission is full faket. Says no, you're limiting it. It's a chiddush. That even though you did a pool, I would have thought, when did Rabbanah say that only the tree surface is also, but the ikir is mutter, you bow down, you did nothing with the tree. Oh, but if you did a pool with a tree, I would have thought, even though maybe the tree tells you also, commercial and there it is. Mishnah. What's the definition of a shade? We just learned that 3 shaders. You planted it, but we're asking now what's on the shade. So the Gemara already talked about it. Not even the plant of the tree. Underneath the tree, there's Avodah Zarah. Rav Shimon says, Kol she'ovrin oisa kol she'ovrin oisa. It's not enough to have Avodah Zarah underneath the tree. You have to worship the tree itself. Having an Avodah Zarah under the tree is not in any way impact the tree. The tree is totally mutter. When I said the tree, so I said everyone was worshiping it. The Motor Taka, they found they weren't worshiping the tree. They found a gal, a little mound there. I'm not sure, but because a gal is there, why don't you open up this mound and see what's inside? And two, by two, they found this an image. I'm like, I didn't know they're all bowing down. They're not bowing down to the tree. They're bowing down to the tzur underneath. Not to let us in the tree is mutter. She told say that it is a vizor under the tree. The tree itself is not affected. Telling mother, Eza shade, but not nan. The first two haven't agreed that's Avodah Zarah. Either you shade, either you planted it, or you later on you decided to trim it or bow down, whatever. But now we're asking, Eza shade shenechel kobar chamim. We know there's machlekes chamim. What's the case with which shade tree are they arguing in? So we answered, Kol sheyesh tachta Avodah chamim. The tree itself is not worshipped, only underneath it. Rav Shimon said, Kol sheyesh only if you worship the tree itself. Only the worship the tree itself. The Chum say no. Even if it is underneath it, and they bow down, that's enough to make a tree also. So the Gemara, how do you reckon? How do you know what's a shade tree? How general rule. Rav said, if you see all these galachim sitting under the tree, they ain't claiming they treat the fruits as if they're holy. Obviously, for them, this is Avodah Zarah. Shmuel says, I feel it, that's for sure. But I feel Amri said, Hani Tamri Lebein Nitzvah. They say, oh, these dates are so nice, we're going to keep it for a certain Avodah Zarah called Bein Nitzvah. Asr. Why? The Rami Bei Shikr, could they take these dates and they turn it into beer? The Shasi Lebeyay made them, they drink it on their holiday. So the entire tree is being dedicated for it. That means the tree itself, because they can use that for their cholos, is an amazing tree. I heard from the Savid Babadisa, Hirchasek Shmuel. Obviously, he didn't hear directly, he heard the middle, or some of these might be, even though we hadn't the first page on head of who everyone is, and that was Yehuda, but this might be another subject of this later on. It's always on the same one. Next Mishnah. Now continuing talking about a shade tree, Lo Yeshev B'Tzila. Now obviously we're not talking about under the branches of the tree, because as the Mishnah will say, that if he sat there, you're tired. We're not talking about, so we're talking about the shade of the tree beyond the tree. You're not under the tree. You're outside the tree, but and as the Rishonim say that I even others, there's a difference between a tree and a house. A tree is there to make shade. A house is not there to make shade. So if you stand next to a house because it's very hot, you want some shade, it might be mutter, even though the house is a cloister of Avodah Zarah. It's only a tree because that is what its purpose is. Yeah, exactly. The tree's purpose is Avodah Zarah to yeah, but that would, you won't have enough on Avodah Zarah as well. You now have enough on Avodah Zarah. But that's what a tree is, even though you made it up. You're right. But that's what a tree is. A house is made l'chaychay, not l'bader. Others say you're allowed to, not allowed to necessarily sit by place for shade, but you're allowed to walk by it because efsher loikem mechaf, which we had in Sachet. Okay. So anyway, Mishnah, la yeshiv b'tzei should not sit in the shade of a tree beyond the tree itself. But the im yashav Torah, if he sat there, you're tired. Why? He's not mamash under the tree. The lo yava tachta, you shouldn't pass underneath it. But the im avar tamei. Now what does that mean? A minute ago you said Yashav Torah, he said im avar tamei. We'll see in a minute. Yeah. Sorry. That's exactly what we're going to say. Yeah, that's what we're going to learn in a minute. What's going on. And Nachman, the first case is Yoshav, you sat there, it's not a problem. Here it's just Yavud, and we make it a problem. It's obviously not the same case. And that's how we know. That's how we know that the first case is outside the tree. We'll still see. The Imam Isaac is the tree is there and the branches go out into the public place. So therefore the tree has no right to take away from the rabbim their right to walk down the streets here, up and down the street. And you walk by in Torah. We'll see later the Gemara. Machlek is whether you walk by just if you did, but you have it. And Rashi explains that the whole tumah of under a tree is really only midrabban. And therefore, if it's a Gzeir Rabbi, Nacham decide not to make the Isser. Because if it's also not Tater, then maybe even Gzeir Rabbi should be also by Rashi learns. You shouldn't sit in the shade. Of course you're not sitting in the shade of Avodah Zarah. You're not have enough of Avodah Zarah. What's the Kiddush? The shade of the shade in the afternoon when the shadow casts a large the tree makes these casts large shadows, and then there's another little shadow of that which is much fainter. So we're talking about it here is we're talking about the shade of the shade. What about the shade of the tree itself? The main shade. Im Yashav Tama. Are you telling me that even though you're not under the tree, you're outside the tree, but this is the main shade, right? The shadow that the tree makes. That is also. How can that be? It's not part of the tree. What is in there? Was it? No, you're right. Like feel Nami, you're not. You're right. If you sat there, you're a Torah. You're not us. You don't come tummy. You shouldn't maybe do chatchila, but you don't become tummy. The chiddush here is that even the tziltzila, we're not out to teach you the din of the Yasha Torah. That's obvious. With the chiddush, the chatchila, you shouldn't have any benefit, even though it's so remote. It's a shade of a shadow, and it's not that you shouldn't have anything. Others learned this word of Rabbi Bachana on the Sefer. It says if Im Yoshav, if he sat toy. So don't sit in the shade, but if you sat there, isn't it Abib Shitu outside the tree? To tell you that even the Tzel Kamasa, that you are toy. In other words, the mamish, the direct shadow, if you're sitting outside the tree, you are toy. The cloud will tell Tila Phil Hatchili Yoshi's word tell me, but the tell Tila Hatchili how to sit. Like Hakamash that Phil Til Kamasa Im Yashal Torah. The Chiddush here is even though you're directly benefiting from the tree, which you shouldn't, but you still remain Torah. If you walk in Tame, my time, why are you Tame if you walk under the tree? It's impossible there shouldn't be a Avodah Zarah. Mani, who holds that, we have that concept of oil. It's like there's a bone of a mace in a house, and you walk in the house, you're sharing the same roof. The tumah passes from the mace to you, oil. The same thing we learn about Avodah Zarah, it passes from you to the thing. But the tree itself is not tummy. Talking about tree which is not tummy. The Tanya, you don't say that must be. We know like should be oil. States he's something about prayer, but you can make the catch about prayer. They eat mace. What's the comparison to mace? My mace with tummy oil. After oil, also with tummy oil. A very modern. We're talking about an shaded tree here, and we're saying over here is that we're saying there might be a takrevus of it. It comes out of pelodic thing. Rabbi Yehuda Seder is like counterintuitive. Till now we learned, under the tree you become tamei. The problem is the shade, the chatzilah. According to Yehuda Seder comes out under the tree you don't become tamei. But because there might be a takrevis avodas kachavim, there might be an avodah zarah, and the oil will take it from there to you. Comes out faket as if it's now makes sense. Great Rashi learns this whole thing is tumas rabbanon. If it's an Asheda tree, Rabbanon knows you're not going to have a no. Everyone knows you're not going to have enough Asheda. But if it's a kravis avodas kachavim, you treat less because it's only an accessory to avodas zarah. So therefore, we make stronger halachas that you're not allowed to even be close to it if you're sharing the same roof because you'll become tummy like oil. Then it says. You go stealing from the public and you walk underneath his tire. Are you saying that if he did your tire or the chatchila, you're allowed to walk underneath the tree? I mean, the chatchila, you're allowed to walk under the tree. But Rabbi Yechon says, that it b'di'evet. So not even an argument. If you had another route, you didn't have to go this way. Then you shouldn't go there. Then the chatchila you should not go there. Go the other way. Or the leka if there's no other way, then the chatchila you're permitted to go under that tree. The Shem will wonder why the Gemara doesn't introduce the idea we're having more psach in the chafei that efshe v'loika mechaber. Let's say you had another way, but you had no kavanah. We said over there that it's not awesome. Because over here you're walking underneath the tree as a route. It's loy mechavin. You have no intention of it. You're just using it as a path. Yet the Gemara doesn't introduce that here at all. Oh, so that's part of the answer they want to give. Maybe over there also is only if the Omelet of Sheshes, even the Efshid is not like identical, which is a little bit longer. Omelet of Sheshes was blind. So he needed an escort. He said to his Gabbai, when we come to this party with that tree is Arihita, let's run. What are you talking about? Either like another way of going, what's that to run? Misha Shoy, we just said a walk like a mensch. There is another way of going to wherever his destination is. Then key and running helped. We just said you're not allowed to go under the tree. Says there's no other way. But Adam Chashuv shiny because he's an Adam Chashuv, people will learn from him and they'll take it further and they don't understand all the nuances. So therefore, an Adam Chashuv should show that he's not really happy to be here. So he runs across. He had no bereda, so Chashilah go, but Adam Chashuv, people learn from him. He should run across. Mishnah. Zaydin, we had part of this mission for them already. Zaydin Tachta, you're allowed to plant underneath our shade tree, your ruckus, you're benefiting from the trees, giving you shade, only by Mesak Shamim, because it's harming you. You need as much sunlight as you can get, and the tree is blocking the sun. It won't grow. So then you're not having any benefit from the tree. But not in the summer, because the tree is protecting the plants. The chazerin and the lettuce, or main lettuce, lettuce never. Why? Because lettuce shade is always beneficial, and that's a problem. Rabbi Yossi says, this is what we had before. Rabbi Yossi asks, why is he asked it? Even vegetables you cannot have under the tree. Why the tree is harming it? The leaves, the dead leaves fall on it. It turns into fertilizer. Now the Gemara will explain. And what's the problem? The problem is the fertilizer is helping the plants grow, and plus the earth is helping the plants grow. So you have a heter and an iser, and the machlekes of zeh v'zeh goyim is mutter or aser, and therefore Rabbi Yossi holds that it's aser. That's going to be the whole discussion of the Gemara today and tomorrow. Second, remember Rabbi Yossi says aser. It sounds like he holds zeh v'zeh goyim is aser right between the leaves and the ground. But abundant and it sounds familiar, but that abundant hold that no, there's every goyim mutter, there's every goyim is mutter. So the Gemara, another place of Lifaket, where the Rabbi Yossi we had before. Rabbi Yossi says, Sheichik, what do you do to Avodah Zarah? You grind it up, and v'zeidul ruach, you toss it into the air, and the Chachamim say, you throw it in the ocean. Now, when you toss it in the air, it'll land somewhere, it'll turn into fertilizer. It doesn't bother him. And the Chachamim say, the Chachamim say it's confronted. It says, you shouldn't have anything. No, the Chachamim say, the fertilizer is a problem because Zeb is a goyim is us. Rabbi says, I don't care. Zeb is a goyim mutter. Don't forget what we learned here. Kasha the Rabban, Kasha Rabbi Yossi, still on both of them. Bish blame Rabbi Yossi, Kasha, Hasam de Ka'azali Ibud. There's a big difference. Over there, in the case of in the case of when you're throwing in the air, you're grinding it, you're being mevatlet. worse than if it becomes bottled by itself. Because if it fell apart by itself, then it's bottled. Here, you ground it up and you threw away. Surely it's bottled. But you mavatl it. You went against what its nature is, and therefore there's no Isser at all. It's not a question of Zev. There's no Isser in the first place. But over here, this is the natural way of the leaf. The leaves fall down. That's what happens. And therefore, it is us. You're not being mavatl the tree because this is derech lasan. Trees grow, leaves get old, and they age and they fall down. And therefore, she says that blight usher, and zeh, the leaves which are usher, the ground that's mutter, zeh is usher. In the case when I grind it up, I hold it's mutter because you mavatl it, you destroy it. But the problem is the chachamim. If the chachamim hold over here that zeh is mutter, so over there when you mavatl it, surely should be mutter. And yet they say that have a problem with the grinding up. So the Gemara, what about the rabbanon? Rabbanon kasha problem. One answer is Eifuch. You know what? Let's swap it all around. And if you swap it all around, everything makes sense. Change the name. He holds Zevazagayim is awesome, therefore he holds him. Not allowed to grind it up and throw it in the air. And the Chacham the ones hold you allowed to. That's one simple answer. Or he raised a late table. The kasha basically like we just answered a minute ago, he's destroying it. Or the Rabbanon, Rabbanon Taka holds that Zevazagayim is mutter. So sorry, Rabbanon hold that Zevazagayim is also. So if Zevazagayim is also, how come over here by the leaves they say it's all right? They're not worried about the leaves because mashbiach ba'oid poigim bebasa. They have a rule: you gain in one place, but you lose in another place. I'll tell you in a minute what that case is. What are you telling me? Oh, he's having an offer. Zevazagayim is, they say, is let's say also. They hold also. Just like over there, you're not allowed to grind it up and throw it away. It's also, but. What are you telling me? Oh, you're having hana from the leaves, but you're blocking the sun. And the damage that's being done by the tree by blocking the sun is greater than the benefit that you're getting from the fertilizer of these few dead leaves. So that's not called hana. You look at the overall picture. You don't look at the specificity of the leaves. The overall picture is this tree is causing harm to the plants. So therefore, that's not called. There's no isa hana. Poigim betzel. You get ruined in the shade. The case over there is. Of an animal of that you redeem the animal, you're not allowed to do certain things to it. One of the things you're not allowed to do to it is you're not allowed to cut it very nicely to be able to take the whole leather off and sell the leather. But why not? If you sell the whole leather, you make a lot more money. If you get a lot more money, the hegdish will make more money, and more tzedakah. Faked, hegdish benefits. The Gemara says yes. So he answered, what you gain by selling the leather at a higher price, you lose on the meat, because the only way to cut it through, you have to cut through the meat a little bit, you got to take off parts of the meat. So overall, hegdish loses money on it. So there's no benefit. Same thing here. Whatever you gain from the leaves, you lose from the fact that there's no sunlight. The Gemara says, okay, now the discussion now will be about Zevazah Goyim as Asa Mutter. We'll continue tomorrow because that's the whole. What the Bishop is really opinions. Okay, have a good day.
Okay, thanks.